Sales are easy. It's making the call that's hard. Hi, my name is Dave Gallegos. I've spent the last 25 years in the mortgage industry and a lifetime in sales. In this show, I'll bring that experience, expertise, and the experts I've met to you with actionable advice to improve your sales. It's not magic. You just make the call. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Make the Call. Today is episode number 12 of a subject matter that I've been covering going back to episode 9. So if you're just joining and you didn't watch 9, 10, or 11, you're going to want to watch those before you jump into this. Although this one, I'm bringing the goods. And I'm just going to get really direct here because the subject matter is call reluctance. And it's the biggest killer of any sales careers I can think of. It's the number one killer of all sales careers, call reluctance. And you better figure out a way to overcome this, or you're just going to have a crappy career and you'll probably get out of the sales business if you don't figure this one out. In the previous episodes, I covered what it is, what it looks like. You all know what it is. So this is it. This is what I want to cover today, is that the first thing that you need to get about call reluctance is you're not alone. Okay. But because I know amazing salespeople throughout the country. I've been in sales for 40 plus years of my life. I don't know anybody that hasn't experienced sales call reluctance. So that's no excuse. I want to make sure that you understand you don't have an excuse about having call reluctance because it's something that everybody has. So get over it. That's the first thing that I would tell you is get over having sales call reluctance. You're not special and you're not unique. The biggest reason that we have sales call reluctance is that we all have a fear of rejection and pain, right? We're trying to avoid pain. Rejection is pain, right? And, this isn't new. We've all experienced this. It's like, the first time you asked a girl out, the first time you asked if you could have something, and we're grown up hearing no all the time, right? So being rejected when we wanted something. You want to ever experience somebody who has almost no call reluctance or fear of rejection is watch a little kid at the grocery store trying to get his mom to buy him a box of cereal that he wants or a candy bar. You know why, by the way, I worked in the grocery business a long time. You know why the grocery stores put that candy bar section and candy bars and gum at the checkout counter is because they're trying to get one where that's the most enticing stuff, right? None of it's good for you, but they're trying to get you to buy something. And you watch a little kid just beg his mom, please, mom, please, can I have, please? Man, there's somebody who has no fear of rejection and he just keeps going, right? What's really fun is when you watch a little kid, his mom's like, no, I said no. And the mom holds firm. A lot of times you'll see the little kid go, okay, but next time, what a great sales lesson that is, right? You watch a little kid beg his mom and she keeps telling him no, and then he gets a commitment at the end to the next time. That's a really good sales lesson to pay attention to. But we're all trying to avoid that rejection. It's not unusual and it makes sense. It's because the way our brains are wired, we're wired for the negative. And so we're pre-expecting to be rejected when we make those sales calls. That's something that we can work on and get better at just by making more sales calls. But just know that it's normal. It's not you. You're not special. It's just our brains are all wired to avoid pain, and rejection is painful. Here's how you overcome it, right? So we're going to talk into, I have 3 things that you can do to make sure that you are overcoming call reluctance. And the first one is you got to know your shit. Right? You got to know what you're doing and you got to know what you're selling. You have to invest time and energy in learning the products, learning how to sell the products that you sell, and learning everything that you can learn about what those products are for so that you can recommend the right solution for your client's issues. And at the end of the day, I don't want to work with anybody who isn't really invested in making sure that they're doing the best job that they possibly can and giving their clients the best possible financing solution. So if that's not you, you would not be a good fit for me and my company. And you have to be somebody who really wants to make sure that they're doing the best that they can. And it's not hard to do. It takes time and effort, but aren't you trying to be the best professional that you can be? Because you're helping people when you're in the mortgage business or in the real estate business, you're helping people with the most, that for what most people is the most expensive and highest dollar transaction that they'll be involved in their entire lives, their whole life. That's an awesome responsibility. So if you're not dialed in on doing everything that you can to be the best that you can be for your client, then you don't deserve to be in this profession, in my opinion. And I feel very strongly about that. But you got to know your stuff and you got to know how to sell it. You got to know what the right solution is. You got to know your product guidelines. You can't tell somebody, you don't ever have to tell somebody they're getting a loan when they're not. And you should never only be interested in getting that commission check. You should be, when I was selling a box of pens, the downside of a $300 box of pen is $300. The downside of a home is hundreds of thousands of dollars. And there's a lot more at stake. Not to give myself a pass for anybody that I sold a box of pens to that didn't get a lot of value out of them. But we're talking about hundreds of thousands of, like hundreds of millions of dollars. Like a home is $1 million. It isn't uncommon to do $1 million transaction today. So you got to know what you're doing. You got to make sure that you're giving your clients the best possible advice. We use tools here like Mortgage Coach, which is a very professional way to educate customers how financing works. And then once you become a much more confident person and somebody who should be feeling confident about picking up the phone and making more sales calls. So that's the first thing you have to do, is you have to know your stuff. So the second thing that you have to do is you have to become really scripted in your delivery of the information that you're delivering. And why is that important? Well, you got to practice your presentation, man. You got to be a pro. Performers on stage or performers in movies, they're scripted, right? They're reading a script, and that's how they deliver the best performance. They practice that script. They do it over and over again. Do you do that? As a real estate agent or a loan officer, do you practice your presentation? Do you record yourself giving the presentation and then listen to it and tweak it and improve it? Do you role play with other people to see if you can deliver that presentation with confidence and with a delivery that makes that customer want to work with you every single time? Because you really should be doing that. You can make $1 million a year selling houses or mortgages. You know that you can. That's a 7-figure income. You know how rare that is? That's the top 1/10 of 1%. I mean, it's rare air to be making $1 million a year. You make 500 grand a year. You can make 300 grand a year. All of these are like, oh my God, dollars. Like you can make amazing money. Shouldn't you be really good at it to be able to earn that? Because you know what? It's not easy to earn that kind of money. That takes a lot of effort. Now, there's been times where the industry's 2020, 2021, when we had 2.5% interest rates, we had to do hard work, but we didn't have to be very gifted at selling, right? Like we were pretty much being order takers, and that's changed in 2023. And now it's 2024 where you got to put your selling hat back on. You got to brush up on those skills. So I always talk about a term called, what is your practice to play ratio? How many hours of practice are you putting in for a performance? And I use the example of, because I did this back in 2010 when I did a training on this subject. And back then, I think Joe Montana had a $10 million a year contract with the Kansas City Chiefs, or he had just finished his part of that career where he had that. I can't remember. I don't even know if Joe Montana was still playing in 2010. But his story was that he put in about 60 hours of practice a week, 60 hours of work for that 60-minute game. So the 60 hours included time with the trainer and time after the game, like taking care of his body after the game. You get, 300-pound linemen slamming on top of you after they try to sack you. You're probably in a lot of pain. So you got to take care of your body. You got to continue. You got to, all the nutrition work that you have to do, all of the time with masseuses and people stretching you to make sure that your body can perform at the level that your body has to perform. This is independent of studying game film and then doing a breakdown of the previous game to see what you could do to you better. Do you do that? Do you watch your presentations after you've given them to see what you can improve? And then you have practicing, coming up with a game plan for the next game. Do you plan your sales calls? How many people don't plan their sales presentations and don't plan their sales calls? So, and then practicing over and over the game, doing coming up with a game plan and then implementing the game plan and watching film and putting all the time and energy. So it was 60 hours a week for a 60-minute game. So it's a 60-to-1 ratio. But here's the key. The quarterback only plays about half the game. So what we're really talking about is a 120-to-1 ratio. And so as a professional salesperson, I have a simple question to ask you. Do you practice at that level? That's why Joe Montana was making $10 million a year in the 2000s, in the 1990s and the 2000s. So $10 million bucks a year, pretty good dough. And in this business, that isn't an impossible number to achieve. So the question is, what is your practice to play ratio? Are you putting that much time and effort? And do you take your career that seriously that you're willing to invest that level of time? So that's it. The last thing that you have to do, the third thing, and this is how you overcome, and this is the number one thing that you have to do, because all of these other things would play into this, is you got to make thousands of sales calls. You have to just get in and go. It's immunity therapy. In other words, you become immune to rejection. Since we know that the biggest problem that we have with it is it's the fear of rejection and avoiding that pain, then the only way to get over that is to jump into. So it's like a cold swimming pool or a cold lake. We've talked about this, or the ocean when it's really cold. You just got to jump in. I have a story about me skydiving. So I took up skydiving a couple of years ago. I have since, I'm on a hiatus from skydiving because I injured my foot pretty badly, and then a lot of people here reminded me that there's a lot of people that are counting on me, and maybe I should be doing something with such a not a high probability of failure, but a high probability of if failure were to happen, it would be pretty traumatic. And so I've decided to put that on hold until I retire. But I will tell you that the first time I jumped out of that airplane, I didn't have to jump. I had to hang off of the airplane strut. I was jumping out of a Cessna, and you crawled out onto the strut of the airplane and you put your feet on the step that you would use to get into the airplane. Plane doors open. We're at 5,000 feet in the air, and you hang off of the strut, and there's somebody that's holding onto your pilot chute. This is how your chute's going to deploy. And you hang out there and you let go, and your chute opens, and then you're floating down. It's scary as hell, man. I mean, I was freaking out doing this the first time. And I had done this years ago when I was 19 or 20, and I'd only done it the one time, and it was kind of expensive, but I couldn't really afford it. And so I didn't keep doing it. It's not as expensive. It feels like it's cheaper now than it was then. I make more money, so it's a little easier to afford it. But altogether, when I took it up a couple of years ago, I've done about 16 or 17 jumps now. And the first few jumps, they were all scary. In fact, the drive up to the jump zone was scary. I had those feelings in my stomach of oh my God, this is really bad. And here's what's really interesting. Those last 5 or 6 jumps, fast 6, 7, 8 jumps, were a blast. I wasn't scared at all. Now, how did that happen? It happened because I did all those other jumps, right? And so I knew what to expect. I knew that and of course, probably is part of it is the fear of how is this going to end? But to be able to overcome that fear and just keep doing it, because I kept doing it, it became something that I wasn't afraid of. And it was something that I was looking forward to. Jumping into a cold lake or a cold swimming pool or the cold ocean or jumping out of that airplane, it's all the same thing, that after a while it becomes normal. And I will tell you that in order for you to get past call reluctance, to get past asking for the business, to get past asking for a referral because you're afraid of the answer, it just takes having the courage to ask. It takes courage to just pick up the phone and do the work anyway, because over time, you're going to get better at it. I talked about this in one of the previous episodes on call reluctance, that sales is a terrible profession to be in when you're not selling. It sucks is what it does, because every night on your way home from work, the negative self-talk about what you're not doing, and especially if you're not picking up the phone and even making the calls, man, this is a hard business to be in, because you're just reminded every day of the results you're not getting because you're looking at your results. It's a results business, right? It's a little different than a lot of other jobs. Like if you're working at a grocery store, which is where I used to work, you're not really responsible for any of the results. You're really responsible. It's just one of the reasons they don't pay as well. And in this results-driven business, we're all paid for the results that we're producing. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to do it, right? We didn't want somebody to tell us how much money we were going to make. This call reluctance, I think it's the biggest killer of sales dreams. It's the biggest killer of career dreams. And it's definitely something that you better figure it out, because if you don't do this to yourself. Don't do this to your family. If you're not going to overcome call reluctance, then you're not going to make it in sales. And you need to go find something else that you can do, because it's too hard of a job and it's like there's no money in it. You might squeak by, doing a dozen or 2 dozen loans a year, but man, that's a hard way to do it. I will tell you that it's always been easier to close more than 5 loans a month than it is to close 1 or 2, because 1 or 2, because we always have fallout. And the only way that that's going to happen, the only way that you can get on a pace to be closing 7, 8, 9, 100 loans a year, which is easily something that you can, not easily, it's hard work, but something that anyone could do if they put in the work, and it becomes a much funner business to be in. And the only way that you're going to do that is overcome call reluctance. So look, I know it's a tough subject, and it's one of the reasons that I wanted to tackle it, but I think it's super valuable and something that you can really decide that you're going to make the investment of time and energy into. Now, if anybody, reach out if there's anybody that would like to talk about some of those different approaches and some of the scripting and any of the mind games that you have to play with yourself to get over this. I'm happy to talk to you about it. But at the end of the day, just understand those are the 3 things that you have to do to get over it. Number 1 is you have to know what you're selling. You have to know your product. You have to know your shit. Number 2, you got to be scripted and ask yourself, what is your practice to play ratio? You got to be able to be scripted enough when the person answers the phone that you can get what it is you want to get out of that phone call, and that you're scripted on being able to answer all of their objections. The number 3 thing that you have to do is make hundreds of thousands of phone calls for as long as it takes to get good at what you're doing and to gain all the customers and all the referrals and all the opportunities that you're looking to uncover in this business. It's a great business. You're helping people with the biggest transaction of their lives. There's nothing better than that, in my opinion. It's the thing I love to sell the most in my life, and I'm really glad that I do it. I've been able to help a lot of people and make a big difference. But at the same time, it's been incredibly rewarding financially and professionally and personally. It's an incredibly rewarding career. So that's it. That's the end of this. I hope that we'll probably jump into this subject at other podcasts in the future, other episodes, because I think it's something that everybody struggles with all the time, at many times in their career. And so I'm sure there's going to be an opportunity for us to delve into it even more. I might even try to get some professionals that talk people through this about how to overcome that sales call reluctance. So thanks a lot for listening, everybody. I hope this has been helpful for you. Please do me a favor. Do something kind for somebody that you can't really do anything for you in return. Rate this podcast for me. It would really mean a lot to me. Give me a 5-star rating, and then share this with other professionals that you think could benefit from it. And that's it, everybody. I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to Make the Call with Dave Gallegos, brought to you by Zenith Home Loans. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the show anywhere you listen to podcasts, and share the show with a friend or colleague who would also find value.